Hey, what is up, Huddle fam? Todd here, coming at you live from Burleson, Texas. And just in case you did not catch my video announcement a few weeks ago, I have actually been on sabbatical from my church in San Diego for the last few weeks. And my family actually bought the home that we would like to think that we're going to retire in one day here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And so we're actually hanging out at this house for the next couple of months. And then I will maintain a residence in San Diego as well. But I'm going to split my time between Texas and California for quite some time. Hey, listen, when you log on, say hi. Let me know that you're here. And anytime during this quick little broadcast, go ahead and throw your questions in the comment section. Let me know if you're watching live, if you're watching the replay. I will come and answer your questions. I'm on my MacBook, and so I don't always see the questions on my MacBook as opposed to when I'm going live on my phone. I always see those live when they come in, but I would love to chat with you. So go ahead, let me know where you're watching from, whether you're live, whether you're watching the replay, and just throw your questions in the comment section in the video here. Oh, by the way, so we drove. So in San Diego, I sold two of my cars. Now I've got a 21-year-old. I've got an eight. Oh, she'll be 19 in a couple of weeks. So 21, 19, and so we're a three-car family, and we left one of our cars in San Diego. I sold two of our cars, and I bought this 2001 Ford Excursion. And the purpose for that was because none of my family wanted to fly from San Diego to Dallas. And so we bought this Excursion to fit all four of us adults in the car and our two giant dogs and drive. Well, we packed up the car. I had just and I bought the Excursion. It was in pretty good shape, but I spent a couple $1,000s making sure that we were going to get from California to Texas. And on the day that we were supposed to leave, we packed up the car. I went to the gas station. I filled up the gas station, realized I had no brake lights. There was a short in the system somewhere, and so I was literally across the street from my mechanic, and I went across and I said, "Hey, you guys have got to fix this." And so they weren't able to fix it. Excuse me. And so we ended up renting a van in San Diego, which we're still renting, and drove. So we left the Excursion in Santee, and we drove, and that was a gnarly trip. Well, I'm 98% sure that somewhere on the trip, I actually think it was Tucson, Arizona, but I'm pretty sure we contracted COVID-19. All four of us got sick. I got hit really, really, really hard. I was pretty sure that I'd actually had COVID last year, and so a lot of the same symptoms hit. My taste and smell still have not come back yet. It's pretty crazy. But this is why I've kind of been quiet in this group here for the last few weeks, because we've been trying to get better, and so I'm finally symptom free. I'm actually flying back to San Diego tomorrow to pick up the Excursion. I'm going to give myself 48 hours to sell the Excursion, and then I'm going to either fly back to Texas, or I'm going to drive the Excursion back to Burleson. So fingers crossed and prayers that I can sell the thing. But I am in my home office here in Burleson, And as you can tell, it is pretty gloomy outside right now. I've got one working light bulb in the light above me. And so I've got this little desk light. And so these are not ideal recording. Uh, this is not an ideal recording environment. But I did want to spend a few minutes, and I want to talk about, I've got it here on my iPad. I just came out with a new tool, and it's specific to getting your ministry team aligned on the same page and pursuing the same goal. And so you may have heard me talk about goal setting and how, back in the day, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, ministries would talk a lot about setting your 3 to 5 year, 20-year vision for your church. And as we learned firsthand last year, 2020, setting a 3-year anything is an absolute waste of time. Now, it's good to say, kind of like I just did. I'm in San Diego. I want to get to Burleson, Texas. And here is the route that I think we're going to take. So it's good to have a 3-year destination. It's good to have a 5-year, 20-year destination. But the route that your ministry takes to get from here to there, you've got to hold on with open hands. And so we learned that again firsthand last year in 2020, that you can go ahead and try and make whatever plans you want, but you better hold on to them loosely. 90 days is really about as far out as you can plan. Now, I still like the idea of setting a 12-month goal. But what I have found is when you get your ministry leaders on the same page, rowing towards the same destination, a lot of your 12-month goals you can actually get accomplished in 90 days. And so I created this 90-day win planner. It's in the Church Playbook Academy. I will go ahead and put the link. I will go ahead and put the link to that in the comment section if you've lost it. It's actually pinned at the top of our Huddle feed is the link. So you can download it. It comes with your Academy subscription. But here's the thing that I want to encourage you to do. I'm not going to go through the whole planner today. But here's the thing that I want to encourage you to do. And it's something that Andy Stanley has talked about for years and years and years and years. It's something that I actually just listened to him talk about yesterday. And that is having clarity over certainty. Okay, clarity over certainty. We would like to have certainty. We live in uncertain times. And so when you live in uncertain times, the thing that you crave is certainty. We would like to be certain that people in our community are going to come back to church once there's a full-on vaccine rollout in our area. We would like to be certain that people will come back to church, that giving will go up, that people will re-engage into small groups, that we will be able to replicate ourselves in the next generation of leaders. We would like certainty, and that's the thing that we crave, and it's the thing that our people crave as well. It's just unrealistic. We have never lived in a time when we could be certain of anything, other than the fact that Jesus came to this earth, lived a perfect life, died a death he didn't deserve to reconcile us to our Heavenly Father. That's the one thing that we can be certain of. The other thing that we can be certain of is we're going to die one day. And you could get hit by a bus, you can get taken out by COVID. But both of those are potential realities. Those are things that we can be certain of. So instead of certainty, we ought to be able to provide clarity. In other words, we can go to our church and say, in the next 90 days, our church is going to go after this, and here's how you fit into it. You ought to be able to get up in front of your congregation, whether in person or digitally, it really doesn't matter at this point, and say, I know that we live in uncertain times and things feel shaky, but I can tell you clearly over the next 3 months, this is what our church is going to be about. We have a 3-year or a 5-year or a 20-year destination. But, hey there, Paul, good to see you, brother. But what I can be clear about in the next 90 days, this is what our church is going to pursue. And here's what we need from you. Here's how you fit into it, okay? So, the question that you need to be asking right now is, what is the one thing that our church can do that would make our church bigger or better in the next 90 days? What is the one thing? Now, here's the thing. The problem with that question is you as a leader, you know there's not one thing. There's 17 things. And the mistake that I have made over the years is I've tried to pursue all 17 things at once. And what that does is it dilutes focus, it dilutes effectiveness, it dilutes engagement. And so what you need to be able to do is to provide clarity of thinking, clarity of focus, clarity of next steps for your church. That the majority of people in this group are not full-time at their church. The majority of people in our group have less than 100 people in their church. And so even when you are at your full-time job, I know that you are thinking full-time ministry. I just know that that's your heart. That's how you're wired. I remember those days. I get it. Your church thinks about ministry a fraction of the amount that you do. And so for you and for I to go through our day and think about the 17 things that our church could do and should do that would make our church both bigger and better, and or, doesn't matter. Your congregation cannot hold all of those concepts and ideas in their head simultaneously. But why? Because they're thinking about getting their kid back into school. They're thinking about taxiing and playing taxi cab, taking their kids to practice, or what are we going to have for dinner tonight, or am I going to be able to make my car payment this month, or is my job going to be safe? They're thinking about so many other things that really consist of their survival, that it would actually be ministry malpractice for us to go to our church and say, hey, church, Listen, I know you want to reach your friends and family for Christ. I want to reach your friends and family for Christ. Here's our 17-step plan to do that. It's ministry malpractice because they cannot do it. So, the kindest thing that you can do for your church is to give them one thing. Now what I'm about to show you, again, it's right here on your 90-day win planner. And it's in the Church Playbook Academy, and it comes free with your subscription. Is if you are full-time at your church, you might be able to get away with doing three things. If you have three dedicated individual leaders that can each champion one thing, and they three have teams of people that you can entrust to their leadership to carry out those three things over the next 90 days, maybe you can get away with doing three. If you are part-time, you might be able to do two. If you are a volunteer pastor at your church, I know that you can do one, but do yourself and your church a favor and don't try and do more than that. Don't try and pull off two things. Don't try and pull off three things. Do one thing. Now, how do you figure out which one thing to do? Now, this is what I am going to show you. Again, it's on your planner, and if you look at the top left-hand corner, 90-day win, start here, and it asks the question, what one ministry should we focus on that will make our church bigger or better in the next 90 days? Okay. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 potential ministries that your church can do, can focus on. You have to pick one. Okay. And so here they are. These are your 9 options that you and your church, you need to pick one to focus on. Now, these 9 things are categories. They're not the actual thing that you're going to do. So before you can figure out what your top idea is for the next 90 days, you need to figure out what category of ministry needs the most effort and energy from your church to see the greatest amount of return on that investment over the next 90 days. Okay? Here they are. Number 1 is worship. Now, typically, we would correlate worship with our Sunday morning service. Now, you can further break that down to, in-person services versus, your online service, whatever. Worship, category number 1. Category number 2, fellowship. Now, these are typically like your small group ministry. These are more community/fellowship oriented Bible studies, which is different from, say, discipleship. Okay? So that's actually the third category, is discipleship. So you've got worship, you've got fellowship, you've got discipleship. And these could be one-on-one, discipler to disciple events or ministries. This can be a book study that someone who is being discipled can go through. Discipleship is the third category. The fourth category is ministry. This is more helping your church understand their gift mix and what area in the church they need to serve in. So maybe over the next 90 days, what you need to focus on is volunteerism. Okay. Ministry, that is a category. Evangelism, that's your fifth category. Maybe we need to spend the next 90 days helping people understand the people in their life that are far from God, how to share your story, how to share the gospel, how to invite someone to church, which is even trickier these days than it ever has been. Evangelism, that is another category. Then the sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories, 6 and 7. It's kind of, 6 and 7 is children's ministry and or youth ministry. Over the next 90 days, do we need to have a concentrated effort reaching children and or students for Christ? The eighth category is administration. These are things like, this could be your follow-up process. This could be assimilation. This is how we turn visitors into members. This is your, financial systems. This is your database. So administration might not make your church bigger, but it could make your church better. Okay. And then the ninth category is other. Now, I generally would not use other as a category, but it's there, in case you wanted that option. So you've got worship, fellowship, discipleship, ministry, evangelism, children's ministry, youth ministry, and administration. You have got to pick one of those categories to focus on over the next 90 days. Here is how you do that. Okay? You download and you print your 90-day win planner. And then what you do is you choose a ministry to focus on that will make your church bigger or better over the next 90 days, and you circle one of them. Now, I like to do this, tournament where each category fights to the death. Now, here's the thing. All 9 categories are important. Every church ought to have all 9 categories in their ministry. But remember, we're choosing, we're selecting, we're being intentional with a focus for the next 90 days. What ministry could our church have a concentrated effort on that would make our ministry, our church, bigger or better in the next 90 days? And so what I do, okay, is I will take, you print this out and you look at worship and fellowship and you cross one of them off. Okay. Between worship and fellowship, which of those would give our church the greater return on investment in the next 3 months if we focused on it for the next 90 days? And so you have got to get clarity. What is most important for the next 90 days? And you cross one of them off. Maybe you say, our Sunday morning service really needs more effort and energy from us than, say, small groups do for the next 90 days. And you cross off fellowship. And then you go to categories 3 and 4, discipleship versus ministry. Which of those two would give your church the greatest return on investment if you focused on it for the next 90 days? Discipleship or ministry? And you cross one of them off. Maybe you say, our church needs to focus more on volunteerism rather than one-on-one Bible studies for the next 90 days. And so you cross off discipleship. And then you go to 5 and 6/7, evangelism or children's versus youth ministry. Hey, what's up, Alaric? How you doing, brother? And so over the next 90 days, what does our church need to focus on? Do we need to focus on a church-wide push on evangelism, or do we need to focus on children or youth? And by the way, you need to pick, not children and youth, children's or youth. Okay? And so maybe you cross off evangelism and you cross off youth ministry and say, okay, hey, for the next 90 days, of those two categories, children's ministry might give our church the greatest return on investment. And then you look at administration and other, we cross off other. So that's round 1. You've got worship, you've got ministry, you've got children's ministry, and you've got administration. And the round 2, you say, okay, worship versus ministry over the next 90 days. What does our church need to focus on? Okay, we really need to focus on our Sunday morning service rather than volunteerism, right? And then you look at children's ministry versus administration, and you say, okay, we're going to cross off administration and look more at children's ministry for the next 3 months. And then round 3, it's between worship and children's ministry. And maybe you say, okay, what our church really needs to focus on is creating a children's ministry that is engaging, because here's what we know. Kids are picking the church for the family. You could have the best worship ministry. You could have the best sermons. If the kids do not like children's ministry, mom and dad will be happy to sit through mediocre worship and a mediocre sermon if their kids love their Sunday school ministry. So maybe you cross off worship, and what you're left with is children's ministry. And so then you go to the next step. And again, remember, so you circle children's ministry, and then you go to the second step of the planner, which we will go over on the next video. Before you set any ministry goals in 2021, you need to go through this process. You need to gain clarity over certainty, and you need to select the ministry category that your church needs to focus on for the next 90 days that will either make your church bigger or better and give your church the greatest return on investment if everyone would pull together and row in the same direction. So, hey, we will cover more of the 90-day planner on another video in the future. If you got questions, comments, concerns, throw them in the comments section right now. I hope that is helpful. We will catch you on the flip side. Take care.